County Commission work session is now in order. We'll go ahead and begin with our engineer report.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
On your agenda, of course, we're bringing a couple of extra items tonight that came up after the agenda was printed. But under new business, we have our monthly project update, and we also have a resolution for you to consider lowering the speed limit on County Road 7715. That's in Commissioner Wright's district. We've got it's a dead end road up in the Orion community. We've got a request from citizens up there. So that's in your agenda package. And then under current business, we have under personnel, we have a memo in your agenda package for 2 employees who've reached the end of their 6-month probationary period. So we're requesting to make them permanent. And then also, it's not in your agenda package, but on the litter program, I wanted to pass along to you. We got a call actually this weekend. The gentleman that one of our employees that normally goes and picks up the inmates, he communicates with the elder work release program. So the person that called him works on the weekend. So, but anyway, he called him to see if we were still interested in getting our litter pickup inmates, and he nothing for sure or definite, but he indicated that they were thinking about allowing their inmates to work pretty soon again. So maybe within a month or something like that. So if you want to continue that program, one of the factors involved is the funding. So we're experiencing a decrease in our funding because of COVID-19. But McKenzie and I talked, and I don't think that's a big enough issue with this program, but it is a factor for you to consider. And the other thing, of course, is the gentleman who was managing the litter pickup crew for us has resigned. As you know, we brought you his resignation letter at the previous meeting. So we do need to, at some point, begin advertising for another employee to fill that vacancy to supervise the litter pickup. So if you want to give us permission to do that tonight, then we'll go ahead in the near future and start advertising for that, to fill that vacancy.
Comment? Go ahead.
I mean, I guess nothing's changed from us. We've not, to my knowledge, no conversation we've had, we continue on to have a litter program, so whatever we got to do to get it back going, we can get inmates.
The money we used to start that program was in savings from changes within the commission office. How has the COVID-19 stuff affected that funding?
I'm just referring to the expenses going forward, paying for the inmates and whatever supplies we may need to buy along, maintenance on the van, but the large expenditures have already been made. And the van has been purchased. We don't owe anything for that.
But as far as what we spent on COVID-19, right now, what we've spent so far,
You worded it though as a decrease in the revenues, and looking at those financial reports y'all emailed out, we hadn't seen a huge.
Yeah, that right now we're not showing a huge decrease in revenues. There is some, we looked at some gas tax numbers this morning, which would be more on his side of things. That's gone down a little bit. I think we're about $8,000 less than the same month than what we collected last April. There's some smaller changes, but now with the new Rebuild Alabama, I believe the numbers are about spot on from what we did last month. Now, we don't have another year to compare it to, so I can't tell you if that's a normal number for the future or not.
And so this month may be different, but
Next
hopefully by
month,
the
yeah.
time.
Yeah, next month could be different, but maybe after that, when things open back up now, it will be.
And I guess what we're saying is, we know in a couple months, we're probably gonna take some sort of hit. It wasn't as bad as we expected, we're just tonight, I'm sure they'll go over those. But, you know, next month, hopefully, if we're to the point where we gotta start cutting programs because of where we are, I hope we would get a little heads up for sure. Because that's probably one of the best received programs we've started since this commission, us six have been doing, at least for my feedback.
And my opinion is that there's not enough uncertainty
Yeah.
to stop it. I would say let's go ahead and move forward and see if we can get inmates, but of course it's yours and yours. But if you'll approve that tonight, we'll go ahead in the near future, like I said, and we'll start advertising for a new employee, part-time. And, you know, we do 3 days a week, so we'll get a part-time employee to supervise the recruit.
Russell,
Yes, sir.
you just stated a few minutes ago that the person that we had on the literary program just resigned. Our literary program has stopped months ago. Why was it still working?
He resigned about the same time that it stopped. Actually, that same week, I think. Whenever we had to stop giving the inmates is when he resigned. I brought you, the letter was in your agenda package for that meeting. I don't remember the exact date, but I think it's been about a month ago.
Anything else?
Yes, sir. Under the last thing we have here under current business, we have the Rebuild Alabama 2020 resurfacing projects. I wanted to just kind of point out that we will need to revise the CPP. There were just some minor changes to some of the, how we're handling some of the projects, and then I think one of the project limits on one of the projects changed. So we will need to bring that back to you at probably your next meeting with the revisions on there and let you approve that. If you remember, you originally approved that last August as required by the new law. And if you change anything that you approved on there, you have to go back and revise that and, publish it. So we'll bring that to you at your next meeting. I just wanted to go ahead and let you know that it'll be on the way. And also under that item, we have the resurfacing loans. As you know, we were not really expecting to get started quite as quickly, but one of the contractors on those 2 contracts was ready to go ahead and get started this week. So they're in the county working or have been today. And so we'll need to be able to pay them their first monthly estimate next month. So I believe Mackenzie has provided all those documents for you. She and Alan and myself and the other individuals involved in the bank worked last week to put all that together. In addition to that, you also should have a copy of this resolution for the city of Troy. This is in support of their project application to the BUILD program. And this project is for upgrades on Trojan Way. I believe the intent here is to make that the truck route for trucks coming through Troy from that direction of US 29. Especially with the distillery coming and with the new Rex lumber sawmill in operation, it's increased the truck traffic through there. So the city is applying for as I said, a federal grant through the BUILD program. And they've asked us or requested that you guys pass this resolution in support of that project. I believe Alan has reviewed this, so legally he's satisfied with it.
I think it's just where they're, they're in the city within the county, and that program is requiring the county just show that it's in support of the city. We don't have any obligation, we don't have to do anything, doesn't affect us, we're just saying we support the city in that request, which I assume we do.
Go ahead. That's all. I'm not familiar with all the intricate details of that proposed project or application, but I do recommend that you support it.
Any questions or comments for the engineer?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do have one more item.
Okay.
I want to give you an update on our debris removal contractor. Just as a reminder, you approved $100,000 out of your rainy day fund for them in the event that we do not get declared. And as of the end of the day yesterday, they had picked up about $67,000 worth. So we're thinking, maybe by about Wednesday, they're going to reach that $100,000 mark. We're still hoping. We still do not have a declaration, and Mr. Reeves can speak to that more than I can, but we are still hopeful, and I think the state EMA is also optimistic that we will get a declaration. So, but now that we've had a couple of weeks to get out there and get a better handle on what we have and a better estimate of what it'll take to finish it up, I'm requesting tonight that you revise what you approved for us just a little bit, so that in the event that we do get a declaration, I'm recommending that we let the contractor that's working for us just go ahead and clean it all up at that point. I'm estimating, based on where they are now, that for maybe $250,000 or maybe at the most $300,000, they could have everything cleaned up. And if the state participates, and if we get a declaration and the state participates in the match like they normally do, then the amount that we will owe for the match will probably be less than what we're actually getting back, that we get back for our own reimbursement for work with county forces, if that makes sense. So in other words, we would be able to pay the match with the money that we're getting back for the work that we did with county equipment and personnel.
I might be the only commission that misunderstood us in the last meeting about picking up the debris. I thought there was $100,000 for all of the debris, and after I talked to him, it was about cubic yards of debris. Now, I might be, like I said, I might be the only commission that's understood, but we said we only going to have $100,000 to pick up the debris. The contract was ready to go, and that if we got the declaration, we would go to $50,000 more. But as he just stated, it's not spending about $60,000 right now, and all of the debris is not picked up. But as I was stating, that I was under the understanding that they would remove all of the debris, within $100,000 to $150,000. If not, I need to get the camera and Joy to go back and listen at the tape and see what it says. That was my understanding.
Anybody else comment?
Yeah, on the agreement to get $100,000 from the lodging tax, this knows what we voted for, $100,000, $950,000. Because without, was my butt trying to get that tax passed was for a rainy day as it was, especially for maintenance at the courthouse, the air conditioners or something that's got to be done like ASAP. If we keep borrowing that money and done it somewhere else, I know we need it. But sometimes we have to wait. We don't need to spend all of the money in the lodging tax, or up to what amount. And then you got that big unit go around before we get the jail bill. We all might be done by the time the jail bill, but we still got money. Need something that makes sure that this unit go out. Those people down there.
Can I make a clarification, Commissioner? Yeah, we're not asking for any more than 100,000 out of your rainy day fund.
And that's what
That still stands. Right, if we get declared, then, you know, that's where you approved the 150,000, but it would all be paid back. So I guess the only thing we're asking you to change tonight is to go ahead, if we get declared, and if the state is going to help pay the match, then let's just let the contractor go ahead and clean it all up. I don't know exactly what the dollar amount will be for that, but my estimate is that it will be less than $300,000. It'll all be paid back.
After you let the contractor go ahead and clean it up, and we don't know how much money is gonna get declared.
You can put a maximum on there if you want to, but if we get declared, you know, FEMA's paying 75%, and then if the state pays half the match, we will only have to pay 1/2 of the match, which would be 12.5%. So I think that's a pretty good deal. But again, you know, if you're worried about overruns or whatever, you can't.
That's the bill, we cannot sit up here and put money in something that we don't even know what they're gonna do, if we're gonna get declared or not.
Well,
I don't think he's asking.
he's not asking us to.
You're not asking for money. If the state declares us, then we would go ahead and continue to use the same person that we have now to finish cleaning up at the state's expense, plus our 12% match that we would have plenty of at that time. Is that the way I understand? Is that right?
Yes. That's the way I understand. And change that maximum 150,000, take that away and just let them clean it all up.
But we wouldn't have any more expenditure out of any of our accounts.
And if it's declared, we'd be reimbursed what we pulled out.
If we don't get declared, they're probably gonna hit $100,000 sometime this week, the rate they're going. So they'll just have to leave, and we'll have to clean the rest of it up ourselves as we get time.
So do you expect that we'll get declared this week?
I don't know. I wish I could give you an answer to it. I will say it's moving forward. Chris Baker from State EMA was down here last Thursday, and reviewed all of our sites, where we're dumping stuff, and got all of our cubic yards, and looked at a lot of debris, and, he sounded very optimistic, but, he couldn't say for sure. Like I say, it is moving forward, but the threshold has been met. Pike County far exceeded their threshold, our threshold, but the state threshold has been met also. But he was leaving here and going to all the other counties too, so. They're trying to get submitted and finalized this week, to hopefully get that declaration this week. But I can't sit here tonight and tell you definitively it will be.
So what's the process for that?
That was my next question.
Well, they gotta go back to the, EMA's gotta go back to the governor and, get approval to ask, and then just submit it to FEMA for, federal declaration. I'm optimistic we'll be done within the next 2 weeks, but as far as, will it be done by the end of this week, I don't know that. I don't think so.
If it is not done this week but happens, do you feel like we can get the contractor to come back and pick up where they left off, where we had not got to? You think they'd be willing to do that?
Well, I can't answer for them. I have not asked them that question, but I hope that they will. I feel like they will.
Well, here, I think, how do you keep them here then if we don't know whether we're gonna get funded for them or not? We can't do that.
Can't.
That's what Commissioner Harris's question is, I believe.
I'll tell them where they go after they leave here.
So, okay.
Well, we can, I can call, talk to someone, and see if we can get some kind of indication what kind of timeline we're on. I know that Friday he was over in Henry County looked at that, so I know, he's still, doing his site visits. And, so I would probably say it would be within the next 2 weeks. I just don't think it would be done on this week. It might be.
So we'll continue on at the threshold that we already have set until we find out for sure whether we're gonna get funded or not.
Unless you want to raise that amount tonight.
We don't have the funds available to raise it. That's what the whole argument is.
It'd have to come out of more money out of the
Yes.
which what's promised out of what's in there tonight, now.
We would have been very close to if we wouldn't have had this $100,000 set aside, using for this, we would have been very close with where we had budgeted the 400,000, leaving it in there, the rainy day part, leaving it there. So we may we're probably
That's
gonna go a
what's
little bit
promised.
below 400,000. Well, I know we are, we're probably go a little below 300,000, depending on how our revenues are for the rest of the year on lodging tax. I think you are done with everything other than the CDB, the IEP.
We've got the industrial access project for UPI coming up. And then we also have the CDBG and EDA project on 7714, north of Rexmont.
Which those won't come out of lodging tax, but he's,
What's promised out of lodging tax that hasn't been made?
Right now-
Other than this debris removal.
the IEP for this year. I think you're done with what you were planning on spending.
But that was with overage,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
That was to the over the $400,000 balance.
Yes, and I misspoke, the only one of those two projects that has anything to do with the license tax revenue is the UPI, the industrial access project for the UPI, and we're paying the preliminary engineering, which was a little over $50,000
But
out of the license tax.
Yeah, but that was with the funds over $400,000, correct?
Yes, it would be.
Yes.
That's right.
So
So it's
so that nobody's confused, that was with the money that we last year in the meeting said over 400,000 you could use for projects.
Correct.
Of the $400,000 that was specifically set aside for emergency situations, the only money earmarked, and please correct me if I'm wrong, as of tonight, is this $100,000.
And it still won't put it under 400,000, it'll put it just above 400, according to the number that we got today. That's why I was asking what was promised.
But we did have some striping, projects that's already been approved, it will be spent out of lodging tax.
So they haven't been spent, that's what I'm asking.
Lodging tax will fall below 400,000.
Have to do it.
What is left to pay? So obviously the debris removal,
There's some
the
striping.
50,000 we just said, and then the striping.
And all of the 50,000 is not due, we've paid part of that. But there's still some of that we'll still be getting invoiced on that. And then the striping project, a big chunk of it is still left to be paid. We still about,
It is.
Yeah.
I can't give you the exact number. We pay some of each one. We pay some of the engineering for the EPI project, and we've also paid striping contractors some already.
but through the end of the budget year, we have striping project, the rest of that balance, and the rest of the IAP money for the UPI business. And then this up to $100,000 out of lodging tax.
It's gonna be less than,
It'll probably, assuming you got nothing else in the rest of the year, you can still be around $300,000 in the fund. And my understanding how we did the motion at the last meeting is we will not plan on budgeting or spending any of that money until it's back out to $400,000.
But that's what we left 400,000, just like this. This is the definition of rainy day, right? Rainy and windy day.
Correct. Yeah, if you didn't have this $100,000 coming out of there, you would still, you would have your balance. of
You had
that money in
400,000.
there. Yes, there would be an issue there.
What is that, sir?
I think that's all we have.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody?
I don't really have anything else, so much as questions about, we're continuing on the COVID-19, we're at 95 cases in Pike County as of this afternoon. And I think there's going to be some discussion soon about when we reopen some stuff, so, we'll get more discussion on that. we met with McKinsey and looked some things out now, we're in pretty good shape as far as PPE and all that. But, like I said, cases continue to go up. We had a pretty good spike in the last, since over last year. So that was just, anything else, any questions?
Questions for you, man? Okay,
Where you think we is on that declaration?
Sir, I'm sorry.
Where you think we is on that declaration?
I'll hope within the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna make a phone call in the morning, and I'll email McKinsey, get it out to y'all, and see if we can get a tentative day when we will have something. So, we'll know where we're at.
Good.
I think we can even cut our match a little more with some of our volunteer services stuff that we're doing. So, hopefully get our match down just a few percentage.
Okay, Alan on CSA?
Yes, I think everyone recalls, some time back after CSX, did repair work to all of the crossings, that however many they did in the county, I don't think they did every single one, but they did a lot of them. But the county was billed, has been billed, continues to get billed, invoiced for several of those crossings, sizable amount of money. And not to put Russell on the hot seat, but when they came in, they were explaining why they had to do the repair work and maintenance after apparently a long time. But y'all know some of those crossings, if you want to cross them, particularly like down there by, in front of City Hall, the one to the left, to the north, you'd almost tear up knock your tires out of line. The track stood up so high. So finally, they did the work. And then, of course, they billed the county for a substantial amount of each bill for each crossing, basing it on agreements that the county and CSX entered into over various times, and I've got them, and because they sent them along with them, but to justify, Pike County agreed to refund us for any work we have to do outside of 2 feet on either side of the track. And the agreement does say that. And it's, one of them's like in the 50s or 60s, one's in the 70s. They're old agreements. But the problem that McKinsey, Russell, and I have discussed is notwithstanding whatever any of the agreement may say. It's the county engineers, we've looked at it, we've analyzed it, and Russell, I don't want to speak for you, so I'm going to let you just quickly, I think we've discussed this before, but it's important now because we're down to decision time, that it's Russell's belief as the engineer, after going out to each site, examining each site, analyzing each site, measuring each site, taking photos, that we shouldn't pay because it was their own negligence and failure to properly maintain that led them to have to raise and go out farther, which then went outside the 2-foot line. Instead of where they could have just stayed in the 2 feet, we wouldn't have been invoiced anything. And we're aware some counties and cities, because they send them to the city as well, municipality, and they just written the checks and paid. Others have refused to pay. I'm not aware of any litigation. I'm hoping that CSX will just move on, knowing that a lot of what happened at our sites or our crossings was their fault. And am I saying that correctly from
Yes,
an
sir.
engineering standpoint?
That's right.
And it's your recommendation as engineer, we decline to pay and then kick the ball into CSX's court, and we'll see what they do?
They technically changed the nature of the crossing after those agreements were entered into or, executed between the railroad and the county. And so there's no cost that is eligible for reimbursement from us for their work.
So the whole thing been like that since 1970, the agreement with the county commission, buying this county commission for that. They just rotate and just follow the commission on those agreements. Now we faced with it, and I hope we can get it solved, where you and Russell talking now, we can, get it solved and no payment.
Well, sir, look at, I mean, when you enter into agreements and contracts, like, as I said, this agreement contains language that we would have to honor. Because we signed, the commission preceding you 50 years ago, however long, it entered into that contract. But that's not that's right now not our issue. It may become if they file a lawsuit, then we'll defend it legally. But what the issue right now is, as Russell just said, the need to have to go out and trigger bringing the county in is because they changed, you can say it again, Russell.
They changed specs on it.
They changed the nature of the crossing
Right.
after the agreements were executed.
So,
Years later.
based on our expert witness, who will be our expert witness right here, our conclusion as a group has been to send them a respectful letter that we understand, but that we respectfully decline because this isn't the same scope, and you came out of the 2 feet because of your actions, not anything we owe. So, but we don't have the authority. I told them, we don't need to notify CSX and without y'all instructing us to do that. So in the business meeting, somebody can just make a motion that we proceed with that, unless you.
Commissioner Johnson?
Did you, when we were talking about this last Wednesday or Thursday, did you forward to Sonny the copies of the Railroad County agreement from 50 to 70 years ago? Did you hear anything back from him?
I believe I did after, I don't know if it was before or after I shared that with him, but I did at some point hear back from him that, he had reached out to a different county that has had more experience with this kind of thing, and he was notified by them that they generally do not pay these invoices.
When he and I were talking about this last week, we didn't talk about this a year ago. I don't know why. Well, we just kind of put it in Allen and Oliver's court at that time, but they didn't just work in Pike County. It was my comment to Oliver. When they came, they worked from wherever it started and wherever it ended, and it really needed, I thought, needed to be more of something. One of the first time I'd say this since I've been a commissioner, this is an ACCA issue, that we shouldn't be fighting it single-handed when they did this to every county that the railroad system in the state. So, and, I would be curious where, I was just curious what his comments to the two of y'all were, because I have had, and since we're on this subject, I'll say it, when this work was going on, and Chairman Sankey and Crenshaw County and I talked, and it's something that I don't know in this conversation that we need to bring Herb in with. It may be 10 years, it may be 40 years where they come do this again, but the problem I had and Chairman Sankey had in Crenshaw County, they didn't, first there wasn't any really notification to us as a community. It just was done. And when they started out in Troy, they didn't close them one at a time. They closed Shelbourne and Ansley and Shady Grove all at one time and on up into Grady. Well, there were people that it was a 45-minute ride for the better part of a week to get home with that same issue. If they'd had to call the ambulance, fire truck, or the police, it would have been a 45-minute detour for first responders to get there. And there needs to be some kind of a conversation now that when you do work like this, we need to be included in the planning of it for fire and EMS type access to the constituents. And I don't know how we do that other than we just go and bring it up maybe in some of this correspondence with them that we don't feel like we need to pay. And furthermore, we've got a problem with how that was done, that it left people with a 45-minute detour for a fire truck or an ambulance to get their access.
I think we'll do that. It'd be easier just, I mean, you know, first paragraph is we decline, and the second one is, in the future, our citizens, the government needs to know what you're doing.
And we need to have some say in how
So we
this is
can
done.
plan how you do it. So anyway, that's that topic. So just in the meeting, I think you just need a motion that we be instructed to go forward with notifying CSX that their invoices are declined to be paid. The second item I've got is not on the agenda. Mackenzie and I talked about it, and I said, just don't worry about a meeting, and I'll bring it up. Have you passed this out? You have the credit card resolution, and just brief history, as I put in the resolution, I had a file on this back in 2006, when Judge Stone wrote a letter to me saying that he wanted to initiate, he and Curtis had talked about credit card payments in the probate court and revenue commission office for whatever you have to pay, just make it easy for customers to use a credit card. And he mentioned that it starts with the county commission having to adopt a resolution under that code section you'll see in there, 11-103-1. And shortly, while all this was going on, I've got notes, document, draft, and this and that. Anyway, somewhere in that time frame, Judge Stone, they didn't get it done. He and Curtis weren't ready, and then Judge Stone retired. I don't remember what year his retirement was, but he retired before that ever, I believe, got implemented, and it was, I believe, Wes Allen, as probate judge, is who actually saw it through to its conclusion. If I'm recollecting those facts, my point of even getting into that is we have credit card usage and have had for several years, and it's not a big deal. This came up from the examiners to Mackenzie and said, just get us something showing that y'all are okay with credit card usage. So I went there, pulled my file, and there it is. It just didn't get finished because Judge Stone went left, and then it got started before we could get a resolution. So what we've drafted is similar to what Crenshaw County did on theirs. I think Mackenzie talked to somebody over there, whatever, and they had done the same thing. So you'll see the resolution where we were put on notice June 21 of 06 by a letter that the probate judge had requested authority to do it, and goes on through what the requirements are. And then I just make it that you authorize it retroactive to that date, and that's all the examiners want. So this is just connecting that dot that didn't get connected a long time ago.
Okay. Anything else, sir?
That's all I have.
Any commissioner have a report at this time? I will say that the administrator and myself will get together with other elected officials at the courthouse this week and try to discuss a way of opening the courthouse. I'm not wanting to set a date until we talk to all those officials and we can figure out what the safest way is to keep our employees safe and our citizens safe. And we will move forward with that with all of your blessing and won't make any action until all of you have been notified of what's been said and what needs to happen. I think I'm saying that right. So, if you have any questions on that, Mayor McKenzie will be glad to try to answer. Okay, thank you. The administrative report.
Okay, the first item on the agenda would be the vehicle purchase for the sheriff's department. And it's actually for the to authorize the purchase and to authorize the budget revision because of the purchase. The sheriff had one of his vehicles was involved in an accident with a deer, and they had to tow the vehicle. All the airbags deployed and it totaled the vehicle out after that. He has found a vehicle on the state bid list, which we were honestly very lucky to find with everything. They've shut down a lot of building of vehicles, but he has found one that we can get one off the state bid list. We're about to get the insurance money in, but it is going to require about a $20,000 change in the budget. So I would like to ask you to suspend the rules so that we can go ahead and get him a vehicle in, because once we get it, we'll still have to get it outfitted and striped and all the equipment put into it. If y'all don't have any questions on that. Next I'll give you on the COVID-19, just a little update. You brought up that with us meeting with everybody about what to do about opening the courthouse and the other county offices. I also would like to let you know we are working on the JAG grant with the Sheriff's Department. We had $58,000 in a grant that we could get after doing some working and looking at the invoices where we've spent and bought supplies. And the few things that they're working on now as far as personal protection and stuff over at the courthouse, and with some overtime that we incurred because of the COVID-19 virus, we have exceeded the $58,000 we believe as of today. So we're about to get that grant. I'm going to try to get that submitted this week. It has to be submitted by May the 29th, and I'm going to try to get that submitted this week since we've got the backup to go ahead and get it submitted. They're saying that it's a pretty quick turnaround is what we were told. This morning we met about it to make sure we didn't let any of that money go back, make sure we had things that we needed. There'll still be some more things that we need. There's a couple of things that I'm kind of looking at now with our janitorial staff to try to maybe get in place that do a little bit more deep cleaning or spray cleaning coverage and things that they use at the university that Mr. Purvis told us about that we're going to look at to have in our county buildings maybe. I don't know if we can get on, but we're looking at trying to see about getting order because I don't think this is just going to go away completely. So we still need to stay safe in the way we can. There will be some more money coming down. We had a webinar with ACCA today. There's some work being done on that CARES Act 2 that's going to go to counties and stuff. Not real sure about everything on it yet, but they are working with some legislation on that where we should be able to do some things there. As far as, I guess I'll throw in the tax stuff here just because I know that was a worry about when things shut down. Right last month, the funds that came in April, which would have been for the taxes collected in March. As far as our sales tax, we are within $3,000. Our general sales tax is within $3,000 of what we had collected at the same point in time last year. So that number is pretty spot on. The jail tax is down about 4% for the same time in April, the collection in April of last year. I don't really know what that is, except, there's a different rate within the city limits of Troy, and outside the city limits, there's two different rates, so that may have something to do with what kind of caused the difference there, not in our general sales tax. But it was only down about 4%, so that was better than what it could have been. Lodging tax If you take a look at it, it looks like it's up, but it's not. I think that somebody must have failed to pay their taxes on time the month before, and they got them in the next month. So it looks like we got more in, but even overall, it's down right now. I know at least one of the hotels here in town is completely shut down, not taking guests at all. There may be more than that, it's just one I've driven by and noticed that they're completely shut down. We may have a little jump, because I do know some people in the county had to find somewhere else to stay when we had that bit of weather. Some people, I think, had to get out of homes and go and do rentals for a short amount of time. So we'll just see how that goes next month. And we'll go probably have a 10th or so of the next month on how it was for the month of April, the collections. If y'all have any more questions on that, the next item is up under, I've got it up under the Rebuild Alabama 2020 resurfacing projects. But what it is we talked to y'all about this in February, the loans to do the 2 sets of projects that y'all have already approved the bids on. Russell talked about this just a little bit, but these are going to be for the warrants, the construction loans and warrants, and then we also have a letter of credit, letter of commitment for Troy Bank and Trust that will need to get approved. The first loan is for $4 million, it's a warrant. It's for $4 million, and this is what is doing the resurfacing project here in the county this year. The biggest resurfacing project the county has ever had, correct? In 1 year?
Both of them combined, yes, the
Yeah.
largest number of miles. in 1 year.
That,
60 miles of road?
Yes, sir, roughly, right, not exactly, but roughly.
so the first one is for $4 million, and this one is doing actual resurfacing on the roads, and this will be a payback time period of 18 years like we had discussed. The second note is $1.25 million, and it is for preventative maintenance, and it's only going to be a 10-year warranty. And so there are 2 resolutions in there that will need to be approved. We'll need to suspend the rules though, to vote on the 2 resolutions and the letter of commitment to Troy Bank and Trust. So there'll be 3 different motions that will need to be made after the suspension of rules.
All right, well, let's stop right there and let you finish. You don't have but a couple more items, if I'm not mistaken, and that we can touch back on them at the regular meeting.
Okay.
It's 6 o'clock, we need to take a 5-minute break and then come back for the regular meeting. So the work session is now closed.
Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for the opportunity to live in such a great community. We thank you for the blessings that you bestowed on us, Lord. And we also ask your mercies on the problems that we're encountering today with the pandemic, Lord, and the storms come through. Lord, we ask a special blessing on the people that are affected by that. And we, as always, Lord, we ask for your wisdom as we make decisions that affect people of this county, Lord. We ask that you be with every decision. And we ask all of this in Christ, Lord.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show that all commissioners are present. Approving of the April 28th minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Barron,
Second.
second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approving of the claims.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson,
Sir.
second by Commissioner Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Engineer report.
Mr. Chairman, the first item that we have under new business that will require action is the speed limit request, or excuse me, the resolution to lower the speed limit on County 8755. So, yeah, that's in Commissioner Wright's district. I don't know if he wants to suspend the rules tonight and vote on it, or bring it back in the next meeting.
What you gonna do?
We suspend the rules.
Okay. Make your motion.
I make a motion to suspend the rules of low speed limit on 7750.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to suspend the rules by Commissioner Wright, seconded by Commissioner Barron. Did you have a comment? Anybody have a comment? Roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Make a motion that we lower the speed limit. Okay?
It's 20,
20?
20 is the resolution.
Okay.
29 now. Have a motion by Commissioner Wright,
Second.
second by Commissioner Barron. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And then under personnel, we have two requests. One is for the 6-month probation completion for 2 employees, as detailed in the memo included in your agenda package. And the other is to begin advertising for a new litter program, litter crew supervisor.
This is part-time.
Part-time, yes.
Okay. So the personnel request, need a motion for that?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Copeland. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Next, we have, which would be new business, the Trojan Way project resolution in support of the City of Troy bill application.
So moved.
Need to suspend the rules because it's not on the agenda, so we have a motion to suspend the rules. I need a second. Second by Commissioner Harris. Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Okay, and now we need a motion to adopt the resolution.
Make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Harris. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, I'm not sure if this is new business or old business, but it was on the agenda at your last meeting, but the debris removal, we're requesting that in the event that we get declared, that you will allow us to direct the current debris removal contractor to finish cleaning up all of the debris from the April 19th storm.
Need a motion?
Good. Question.
Question?
We cleaning up just paved roads and dirt roads, and what I found ourselves with dirt roads, we still got partial trees laying.
Well, what we're doing right now is the contractor's working in the south half of the county, roughly, and they're moving across from east to west, getting the paved roads first, and then which if we don't get declared, this won't happen, but the plan is to let them go all the way across from the paved roads and then turn around and come back from west to east and get the dirt roads. And then, we're still cleaning up some of the debris in the other areas of the county portions. But yes, sir, we are planning on getting the dirt roads as well.
Yes, sir.
My opinion on it as a commissioner, I think we should wait till we get declared and then take this up.
Well, yeah, you can't tell them to go to work until we get money. Paid.
Well, I guess if we're not, if the next meeting's on a holiday, and it's canceled, would mean it's a month before we have a meeting. I mean, in my, how I'm taking what he's asking is that in that interim time period we're declared, he can call them and say, please come back to Pike County at your earliest convenience. And that it wouldn't go a month of nothing getting done. That you said, if we're declared.
If we're declared, I'm in favor of hiring, surely.
That we would, or ask, he's asking, am I right? Is that what you're asking? That if we're declared, you're asking for permission to call them and ask them to come back and finish?
All right, I'm good for that.
Right.
Question?
Well, I say this, obviously, we're all hoping we declare, and we're looking at rainy day funds, and we're hoping what we don't have to do. But if we don't get declared, we're still gonna have to
Clean this up.
clean this up. And so, we can't stand, in some of these areas, we can't stand to be cleaning up debris a year from now. So we're gonna have to make some hard decisions, assuming that we don't get declared.
Yeah.
But that can wait a month, right? Because we're still gonna have that crew. We're still gonna have your one crew that you've got working on it.
Right.
But if we get declared,
If we don't.
Well, if we do, there's no need in postponing it, because basically, we've paid our match with the work that we've done. So us giving you the approval tonight is at a net sum of $0 out of our budget
Right.
that we haven't already approved an expenditure, so there's really no reason that we wouldn't do it. Now, this is gonna be a very hard conversation where we come up with money and what we don't do, or do what we do if this declaration doesn't come, but we're all confident Mr. Hurley's gonna go to Montgomery and get them straight. So,
Maybe Mark one.
You think Mike?
So the motion
What
would
you
be,
saying, what you saying, if we get declared, we can continue with this contract.
right,
That's what-
after
If we don't-
1 year,
if we don't get, then
we gotta come
the
back,
county got to do this first.
and we gotta come back and do something.
and we would have to make the, how we did that.
Yeah, I get that.
Yes.
Um,
So if we, the motion is, if we get declared, then we will continue to use the same contractor that we already have in place. That's the motion. If somebody will make it. Correct.
So,
Motion by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Copeland. All in favor? Motion carries.
And, I think that's all we have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hurd, anything to add? Any questions for the EMA? Alan, we will need a motion for the CSX notification letter to decline. Is that?
That's sufficient.
Yeah.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson. Sir?
Yeah, it's just been a little thing.
It's on the agenda.
So, yeah, I guess we do. Suspend the rule.
Is this first time that I can't
We've
remember?
talked about it, it's been a while. but we
It hasn't been on the,
haven't
it hasn't been on the agenda, we'll have to add it.
So this is first time back.
It's
It's been the first time back on the
Just-
agenda.
just
yeah.
suspend the
Suspend
rule.
I make a motion, we suspend the rules.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson to suspend,
Right.
second by Commissioner Harris, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Now motion for the notification letter to decline.
I would make a motion for the notification letter to decline payment and to have added to it that in the future, the county EMA and commission needs notifying to handle first responder
Okay.
issues.
Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Johnson.
comment real quick.
Go ahead.
There's a federal regulation that regulates them outside of the state that you probably, before you word that, you probably already know this, before you word that letter, you might want to check. We've had a lot of dealings with them, and they usually say the state has no authority, and they lean on some federal regulations that regulate them, just so we don't,
Yeah, they would probably try to take us in a federal court, is what you're saying, but, you know, I don't,
I'm not saying that on the pavement, I mean, obviously, we gotta do what we gotta do if they fall outside of their agreements, because they're signed agreements. But on the notification, not that we don't need it, some of what their requirements are spelled out, and I can't remember it now, and I've got it at some place, I can send it to you. But I'll second the motion.
Okay. Seconded by Commissioner Copeland, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We've already talked about meeting with the,
Mr. Chairman, that next item that I
no, the credit card usage.
raised, and we'll need to suspend the rules, but just, y'all each have the resolution that was McKinsey gave you, and we just need to, I recommend adoption of it to
So this will be for a credit card and usage.
give to the examiners of what actually we approved in the,
Retroactive.
And we're accepting payment by credit card.
that's right.
I got it.
We're allowing our customers and the public
To pay by
to
credit card.
pay by credit card.
Okay. So that, need a motion to suspend the rules.
That's correct.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Okay, now a motion to allow the usage.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Harris. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries.
Do we need to make a motion authorizing you for the meeting tomorrow?
Mackenzie, how we need to handle that?
Now, you can be, on that.
Just,
Okay, then.
okay, we'll just,
That's your
We
point.
talk about,
all right. We're talking about reopening after visiting with all the other elected officials. We will send out an email letting everyone know and then make it public. Is that good with
Make
everybody?
any kind of motion.
Do y'all want to authorize the chairman to be able to do it without y'all having to come back together? You want to go ahead and authorize that?
That's the motion.
Because we're looking at not having our next meeting, you would otherwise have to call a special meeting in order to open.
I'll make a motion to authorize the chairman after notification of the commissioners to work with the department heads on a date. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Barron. Any further discussion?
comment,
Go ahead.
question. So this would qualify, I'm not against
Yes.
your authority, just this would qualify under that act that because it's COVID-19 related, we do it over the phone like we did when we closed the courthouse, correct?
Could if y'all wanted to do that.
I have no problem. I just assume y'all know everything's going on anyway.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against it, but just we didn't talk about it. I think this would qualify as same thing we did last time, notify the media and got on the call. I don't really, the only thing that, I mean, I know we'll be notified, I know, we'll have those discussions, I know our other elected officials,
We can, I mean, that's fine.
It's kind of like-
Then we just don't need a motion or anything at all, and we'll just, we'll call, once we know what we want to do, we can call one and we'll notify everybody like we have to do.
Okay. Mighty fine. Okay, administrative report.
We have a motion.
You have a motion.
and a second.
Go ahead, Mr.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Barron. And all in favor? Any opposed? That motion carried.
So we're not gonna have a call meeting.
No.
who's gonna,
Make sure I'm clear.
We'll
But we're just gonna go ahead
get
and authorize
ready,
you.
notify the meeting and go on.
That is correct. Let me rewrite that down. Okay, the first item will be the vehicle purchase and revision of the budget to allow for that purchase. If you want to do that, we'll need a suspension of rules and vote on replacing that vehicle and revising the budget of that budget.
Question.
Go ahead.
Mackenzie, did you say that, that vehicle's gonna be $20,000 excess?
That is what we'll need to revise our budget. We're gonna get about a little more than 17,000 back from the total vehicle. So insurance will cover part of the payment
Okay.
too.
So we need a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, I make a motion to suspend the rules.
Motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Wright. Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Now I need a motion to purchase the vehicle.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Harris,
Second.
second by Commissioner Copeland. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the next item will be, make sure I get to the right thing. It's gonna be the construction loans, and warrants, and then the letter of commitment to Troy Bank Trust. I would like to let you all know, there's just gonna be 2 warrants in the end, a $4 million warrant that will be paid back over 18 years after the initial year of construction period. The second warrant is $1.25 million that will be repaid over 10 years after the initial first year of construction period. We've done this, we've worked with Troy Bank Trust, and it will be at a rate of 3.75%, which is great. We were figuring a much higher rate than what we ended up getting. So it's a really good rate for these bonds.
And this also will be, the first motion will be to suspend the rules.
Yes, I will need a suspension of rules to vote on 3 items. It'll be a suspension of rules to vote on resolution for the $4 million, a resolution for the $1.25 million, and a resolution, a vote on the letter of commitment
To Troy Bank.
to Troy Bank Trust.
Okay. Question?
Question. Again, you said 18 years, I see 19 years on it.
Yes, that is correct. You say 19 because you have 1 year of construction on the loan. That'll be an interest-only payment while we're getting the work done. And it will convert straight to a warrant, which will be paid back, the principal and interest payments will start then and be paid back over 18 years.
Give it to me.
And it's the same way, if you'll notice on the 1.25, it's
Same
1 year
thing.
of construction and then the 2
Yeah.
years.
That's it, really. Okay, so the first motion will be to suspend the rules for those three actions.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson,
Just,
second by Commissioner Wright. Roll call vote.
yes.
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 So now we need a motion to proceed.
Okay, the next motion that I'll be asking you for would be the approval of resolution authorizing the $4 million warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Barry. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
And the next item will be the warrant resolution for the $1.25 million.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wright,
Second.
second by Commissioner Copeland. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
And the last item that has to do with that would be the letter of commitment for Bank and Trust.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Copeland. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay. The next item that I have is going to be personnel at the Sheriff's Department. We have a letter of resignation in your package that y'all were presented at the last meeting.
Right. Need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Wright. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay, the next item was also presented at the last meeting. This will be fuel fleet card program. This is something the sheriff is wanting to change over to this. It's for when they're having to take people out of town. The cars that they currently use were just, they couldn't find gas stations that would those cards. This one opened up to quite a few more gas stations. Of course, they would still comply with what we already have as a credit card usage policy, which is separate from what you approved tonight. We have a credit card usage policy resolution. So we just allow them to be able to get gas easier than trying to hunt down somewhere to go when they're going to Huntsville or Mobile or something like that where they've had problems in the past. This would not be for regular usage. They'll continue to get our gas out of our rate department.
Mr. Chairman.
Question?
Why we can't, get a credit card that they, like when they go out, go be for meals, but, they have to buy their own meals and get reimbursed?
Our policy does not allow for that, the current credit card policy. I would not recommend that as your administrator to have just credit cards out there to everyone.
What about having,
We have a hard time sometimes getting back receipts, and you surely would have a hard time with that.
Comment, yes.
Go ahead.
So with these WEX cards, 'cause I've got one for mine, it basically tracks, and to my knowledge, they're not allowed for anything but fuel.
They're like for fuel and maintenance, if they were to get off and
That would bring
need something like that, it would allow for some maintenance if they were to need that, but it
It
is,
ties it to a vehicle.
yes. It would be tied to, yes, vehicle and
person.
person.
Right, so,
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve
Okay.
this.
Motion by Commissioner Copeland,
Second.
second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And the next item I have would be, the next scheduled meeting is on May 25th, which is Memorial Day holiday. This is one that we usually cancel it.
Police Commission, I'd like a motion to cancel the meeting. Motion by Commissioner Harris,
Second.
second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Closing comments, Commissioner Wright, Commissioner Barron, Commissioner Copeland,
None.
Mr. Harris, and Commissioner Johnson. Okay. Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wright, second by Commissioner Barron, by Robert Rules, we are adjourned.
I got tired of it.